Hi, my name is Raylissa Marquez, and today I'm going to be discussing animal shelters. Have you ever wondered how many animals get put down every year in these shelters? Well, if you have, I can tell you it's approximately 92,000. Isn't that number crazy? 92,000 animals get put down every year in these shelters. If that was, say, plastic bags or water bottles just being thrown everywhere, everybody would be talking about it, right? How come this isn't being talked about? I bring this up today because throughout this speech that you're going to be listening to today, I'm going to be talking about 3 key topics on why we need to start adopting from animal shelters. The first one being that these animal shelters are being overpopulated by these private breeders. 2 is that why and how these animals are being stereotyped by being labeled as sheltered animals. And third being why these animals just want to be loved. And they're probably some of the best animals that you'll ever meet. And if you take the time and the patience to help them, they'll probably be your best companion. Let's jump right into it. The first topic that we're going to be talking about today is going to be about the difference between animal shelters and private breeders and how private breeders are causing an overpopulation in these animal shelters. So just for text, an animal shelter is a shelter or a home that takes strays and homeless animals in, while a private breeder is somebody who gets 2 animals and has them procreate, and breeds them and sells them for their own profit. So the reason why these animal shelters are becoming so overpopulated is because the people buying these animals from these breeders are not well educated in how to take care of them. So instead of finding people to help take care of them or training them, they are leaving them on the streets, they are giving them to these shelters, or worse, leaving them on the sides of the road. According to the ASPCA, 6.3 million pets end up becoming strays due to this issue. And this topic is a very broad topic because a lot of people think that they're ready for these animals or take these animals in being cute or whatever. And then once they start doing whatever they don't want them to do and they can't guide them correctly, then they turn to these options, which is why these shelters are being so overpopulated. Which is why it is so important to adopt from these shelters rather than buying these animals off of a private breeder. While we have a better understanding of that, that's going to lead me into my next point, which is why these animals that are in these shelters are labeled and the stereotypes that come with being labeled as a sheltered animal. So we all know and we all understand how these animals have a traumatic past most of the time, and that's how they ended up in the situations that they're in. What a lot of people tend to not understand is the fact that these animals can still be trained, they still deserve a life, and they still deserve a loving home regardless. This label as being sheltered animals has caused people to portray these animals as aggressive or unadoptable, and that is not the case at all. And in most circumstances, these animals are just scared and they're reactive for most of the part when you first get them because they don't understand how to act or what you want them to do because of the situations that they've been in the past. In an article by Humane Pro, they explain how the main reason that these animals have such a hard time getting adopted and are stigmatized is because people don't understand the sheltered lifestyle of a dog or just any animal at that, and that they don't realize that there's an actual problem that's going on. They think it is okay to just keep buying from these breeders. Now that we have a better understanding of where these animals are coming from and how these stereotypes and these labels are very hurtful to these animals, now I want to jump into the topic of how these animals can be the best companions for you and are overall just animals in general that want to be loved. There are 2 main stories that I wanted to share in this section of my speech because I think they're very heartwarming and they give a great representation of how these animals can become your best friends and overall just learn to love you. The first story is of these 2 sheltered animals from the Best Friends Save Them All campaign. These two sheltered animals were fostered by a former U.S. veteran, and in the process of this fostering, he explains how he just got these dogs just to have companionship and just to have somebody there because he was suffering with severe PTSD and anxiety. And they eventually just turned into his best friends. And with the training and the guidance that he had given them, they are now his personal therapy dogs and service dogs, and they take care of him. And he says without these animals, he doesn't know how he would cope or he would go on with his day-to-day tasks now that he's gotten older. And I think that is just one of the most heartwarming stories, and is very amazing, and just goes to show how these animals can truly impact your lives just as much as you impact theirs. The second story that I wanted to talk about is about this older dog that was also from the Best Friends Save Them All campaign article. And this dog was told as old dogs can still learn new tricks. And the phrase was given to this story because this dog is an older dog and it took a lot for it to be fostered. But once it was fostered, it actually got put into a training program for inmates and is now being used to give these inmates a sense of structure and enjoyment while they're going through and learning themselves. I think this is very important to show that these animals very well, regardless of age, can still be taught, can still be trained, can still be loved and learn and continue to grow with whoever is their owner. And I think that makes a great companion and a great best friend. To close off my speech today, I'm just going to be reiterating the three main topics that we went over in today's speech. The first one being how these private breeders are causing overpopulation in these shelters, and it is now becoming a problem, and we need to strictly start adopting from these animal shelters. Two, being the stigma that comes with being labeled as an animal shelter, and seeing that as these people are considering these animals unadoptable and unlovable, and that is just not the case. Third being how these animals are probably going to be some of the most compassionate, loving animals you will ever have if you give them the chance. And I just wanted to leave you off with something to think about. And that being said, I just want to say that these animals need you just as much as you need them, whether you know it or not. And if you do decide to get an animal, think about how much joy you would bring an animal if you seen them in one of these shelters, and the realization when they realize that you picked them and they're the lucky one that gets to go home with you. Thank you.